then it just like took off, and now we're live. I'm giving them the backstory of the Garage Happy Hour for those of you who have watched this show for a number of weeks now. I cannot believe I need to count how many shows we've actually done. I think we're in the neighborhood of 40. We're getting there. I mean, we started this thing in April. It's unbelievable. I don't know how many weeks that would be. We're about 30, somewhere in there, approaching 30. Anyway, I am thrilled for a lot of reasons. One, that we're all healthy, and here we are. Two, that it's Bragging Rights Week, and today is the 40th anniversary of the birth of the Bragging Rights game, when those two schools, Missouri and Illinois, Norm Stewart, Lou Henson, got together and played a game on December 10th, 1980. And the fact that I have these two great voices joining me on the Garage Happy Hour. You see us on the screen. All three of us are together. So right over here is Brian Barnhart. He is the voice of the Fighting Illini, and they are on fire. I mean, it's hot. I can't even – I feel the heat just going like this. They're on fire. They destroyed Duke by 15 at Cameron Indoor, and it wasn't even that close, 83-68, and a team that is really playing well, number 6 team in the country. And Brian, thank you, first of all, so much for being with us on the Garage Happy Hour. It's great to have you.
Well, this is a first to talk to a show host in his garage, so that's pretty cool. But
I love it.
It's 2020, but no, it's great to be on with you and talk some bragging rights.
Yeah, we're going to talk bragging rights. We talked about moving this show into a studio once it got popular. I'm like, we can't do that. It ruins the whole thing. We have to keep it in the garage. So I'm in the garage, and you guys look very comfortable in your homes. And right here is one of the great ones also, and that's Tom Hart. He is with ESPN and the family of networks, and most prominently SEC Network, where he's done a number of games for his alma mater. He's from Columbia. And Tom Hart is with us on the Garage Happy Hour. What a treat, both of you. And Tom, thank you so much for being with us.
It's great to be here. I mean, this is fantastic. I've seen the show virtually. I've seen what you've done. It's a fantastic idea. I don't know if you ever get nervous like I do, because I call games from my basement, and I'm just waiting on a neighbor to stumble to the back door and start pounding on it while I'm on the air. So luckily, your neighbors are professional enough that they know that you're in your garage, but they let you be.
You know, it's funny. It's part of the show. Like we've had dogs run through the garage. We've had the dogs barking. We've had my daughters in here. We've had the show technically go out. I've had David Freese running around his driveway trying to get a signal. It happens. It happens. We're sponsored by Ameren, Illinois, and what a treat to have everybody here. Thank you, by the way, Tom, for watching the show, and Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to both of you. That is a beautiful Christmas tree, by the way. I mean, really, that's a nice one.
Well, it's my office Christmas tree, because now this home is my office. So, it better be good, because I don't go anywhere else anymore.
Yeah, I hear you. I get to work downtown. I do work downtown at KMOX most of the week, but I do the show here. You mentioned, so are you doing games, Tom, in the basement? Is that right?
Yeah, literally. I mean, I was calling the Missouri Liberty game last night from my basement. My partner, John Sunvold, was in Columbia for the Missouri game, but he was 5 miles away from the arena in his basement doing the game from his house. And it's been like that for me since the summer when at ESPN we started covering Korean baseball. And it was amazing. I never thought, none of us thought we'd ever be in this situation in 2020, right? But I'm sitting in my basement in Atlanta, and I am an expert now at Korean weather systems, because I know that if there's going to be rain in Incheon, that I don't have to get up at 3 a.m. And I know when I go to bed at 9 p.m., whether or not that's going to come in off the Sea of Japan, and we're going to have a rain out. That's very important, because nobody wants to set their alarm at 3 a.m.
That's right. The KBO, and what a I have not done it yet. I've not done. No, I do games for the Missouri Valley Conference, and I was telling Brian the plan at the moment is we're going to travel, and we're going to actually go to the venues. We'll see if that changes. It's a strange time, isn't it, Brian, in college basketball? And you just did the Duke game from home, didn't you?
Yeah, we just did it in the studio there at the BFL building on the university campus, and the guys there are able to set up a big, screen TV. You're sitting, 2 feet in front of it. So you get a really good view in that case. But it's just weird. You're in a studio. We had the engineer at Duke was feeding us some audio, and they got it matched up pretty well. It was actually pretty good. You'd hear the shot hit the rim and go in or go off. And so that was pretty cool. But then you take your headset off during a break and it's like, dead silence. And it's just very, very strange. And we had the same thing in football. But for me, as a radio play-by-play, as long as you've got some kind of audio noise of some sort, you can at least get through it. I just don't like sounding like I'm in a phone booth. So if we have to, invent the noise or create it or take the effects from TV, even if they're ahead of us slightly, we'll go with it.
Yeah, and boy, did the Illini go with it. I'm right, aren't I? I mean, that was actually more of a beating than the score showed. I mean, you were up 14-2. You're up 17-4. You led by 14 at the half. You never let it get below double digits. That Illinois team is firing on all cylinders. What makes them special, Brian Barnhart?
Well, part of it, it really, the anticipation was high anyway because they added Adam Miller, who was Mr. Basketball in the state of Illinois last year. They added Andre Curbelo, who is a magician with the basketball. I mean, he's amazing, from Long Island Lutheran out east. And then Kofi Coburn, who most people thought would put his name in the draft, and then he'd probably come back, which happened. And then Ayo DeSumo, they expected to be gone. They did not expect to get him back. And as it turned out, he came back. And to his credit, he's upped his game. Points, assists, rebounds. He's doubled, the latter two categories from a year ago. He's the natural leader of the team. And, just having him back took it from a really good team to an excellent Final Four type contender because of just all the scoring. You guys know this. When you can score from a variety of places on the court and a variety of guys, you're not quite sure as an opponent who you're going to guard or, you've got the scouting report, but you can't stop everybody. And they really did. Mike Krzyzewski said it after the game the other night. He said Illinois just imposed their will, and they did. And they never really let Duke in the game.
Yeah, he said we got beat by an older, better team, and they do. They have a great mix, and they've got it going right now. And then there's Missouri. Here comes Mizzou now at 4-0, and some quality wins, too. They beat Oregon. They beat Wichita State. Liberty's no pushover, are they, Tom? That's a pretty good team they beat yesterday, and Missouri had to have a good, strong finish to get it done, too. But that's a nice-looking team right now at 4-0.
Yeah, to your point quickly about Liberty, they already had a couple wins against SEC teams. They knocked off South Carolina. They beat Mississippi State. They're the preeminent three-point shooting team in the country. So you can't take them for granted, and a team that won 30 games last year. I think Missouri's strength, and anybody who's seen them will tell you this, is their leadership and the veteran play. And we mentioned this in the broadcast last night. To me, there's two levels of this. It's knowing your teammates, right? I mean, that's important no matter what sport you're playing and no matter what level you're at. Knowing that you can trust the guy next to you, knowing his strengths and weaknesses and all that stuff. But to me in college basketball, more so than anything, whether you're playing for Mike Krzyzewski or you're playing for John Calipari, you're playing for Konzo Martin, whoever it is, to know your coach and for him to know you and to know how he's going to react when things get tough or what his expectations are. And Konzo has very high expectations. He always has. That's invaluable, especially in a season like this where there's so many distractions and so many random distractions. You don't even know if you're going to play a game in 2 days that's on the schedule. You don't know if you're going to be able to practice with your guys that afternoon. Somebody might be out for 10 days or 14 days. So I think the amount of players that Missouri returned, 88% of their scoring is back from last year. The regular rotation is back as a whole. A couple guys off the bench that are back. That's invaluable in a year where you have to deal with the unexpected.
Yes, that's right. What a matchup it is. Different. Now, there was a coin flip to determine home court, and Mizzou Arena is the site as a result of the coin flip. And it's different, isn't it, Brian? I mean, this game, the bragging rights game, is as much about the fans as anything. I mean, it's about, of course, the players and the coaches and the history. But that place with, I don't want to say split, because if we're being honest, it's been about 60-40 Orange against the black and gold, but it is loud, it's nasty, and all that will be absent. However, it's still a lot of fun, and it's a good game, isn't it, Brian?
Well, it is. And every new Illinois coach that came in, I said, now, have you seen this game? And most of them were like, yeah, I've seen it on TV, or, I went once and watched. And I said, no, but have you seen it right before tip-off? How much energy there is in that building. I mean, it crackles. And I've had different color commentators over the years, from Stephen Bardo to, Jerry Hester to now Doug Altenberger and Deion Thomas. And they because they're so excited about the crowd, the energy level as it happens. I mean, it's just flat out amazing.
It really is. It's a great scene, isn't it, Tom? I know you've been in there for a bunch.
Oh, yeah, a ton of them. I mean, that was, as a student at Missouri and growing up in Columbia, that was a game that we always looked forward to, just simply as fans. It wasn't just the in-stadium experience. I mean, that was obviously the big part of it. And for a number of years, it was split right down the middle. And it was an awesome scene. But just being around the holidays, the festive feel, folks that were, St. Louis natives who came home for, the holidays, that were back in town from Illinois or Missouri. And you go out, you see your buddies, you go to the game and continue it afterwards. But Brian's right. When you walk into an arena and it's crackling before you even get through the tunnel to get inside the bowl, that's when you know it's a big game. And the bands are playing on both sides and they're going back and forth. I'm lucky to cover SEC football every weekend. That was an SEC football environment, if you wanted a comparison. And it didn't matter who was having a great year, who was having a down year. Hopefully it was a year where they were both ranked or both even in the top 10, as we got in the late 80s, and then back in the early 2000s, they were both ranked a couple times in the matchup. But the neutral site is what has made this game so special, and St. Louis and the holidays is what made this game so special. They didn't do it right until 1980, and we're just talking with Sunvold last night about the last game in '79 that was in Champaign, and it's great. I mean, games on college campuses are awesome. That's why we all love college sports. But having the occasional game that is played on a neutral site where it matters to the folks who live in that town just takes it to another level.
I can tell you, as a kid growing up here in St. Louis, it was mandatory. We went to the bragging rights game. In fact, I do believe I've been to all of them except for maybe two, and I'm going to miss this one on Saturday, but it's not here. But I went to so many. It became a part of, growing up with my dad. I lost my dad in 1993 to a heart attack, and that was the year sorry, Brian, but that Kawan Garris missed the free throws. And the triple overtime game is one of the greatest sporting events I've ever seen. I mean, it was unbelievable. That was at the old arena. You talk about a place that rocked. I mean, that place is a real deal.
You're absolutely right. And Illinois fans still, contend and argue, and they keep saying, I've got video to prove it, that Norm Stewart was out at midcourt, behind Kawan Garris. I mean, it's just hilarious. And, it was the atmosphere in the old building was great. But even something as simple as they do the cheerleader contest, where the male cheerleaders hold up the female cheerleaders during one of the timeouts. And even that, just the competition to see who could last longer. I mean, the place would just absolutely roar, even in that timeout. It was just everything about it is just so special.
I believe Illinois got that one last year after a long run for Missouri. I think that streak, the cheerleader streak, came to an end. Tom, gosh, I mean, the name Norm Stewart, it just stirs up so much. What do you think of when you think of Norm Stewart?
Well, first of all, Brian's absolutely right. Like, people are going nuts for a cheerleading contest, and I've been one of them in the past, and I can't think of any other time that I've cared who could stand on somebody else's hand the longest. That only in that arena and only in that game, and probably only after 6 big jumbo stadium beers, does one care that much about who's going to win that contest. Norm wasn't just a legend in his own right, and isn't just a legend, but also the coaches that he went head-to-head with made all of those meetings so much more special, right? Whether it was Billy Tubbs at Oklahoma, who just recently passed away, or Lou Henson, or so it wasn't just Norm, it was Norm and Lou. It was these two legendary coaches who probably, I'm guessing, really liked each other when they weren't coaching against each other and put their arm around each other and shared funny stories. But yeah, Norm, there's no doubt Norm was on the floor. I mean, we're lucky Norm wasn't, pulling him on the back of the jersey in that game. If you're my age, that 93 game was the one that wasn't just a special game for this rivalry, but it was a big game for Missouri. Going into that game, they barely beat Coppin State the game before. And the game prior to that, they opened the new arena in Fayetteville, and Nolan Richardson in Arkansas beat them by 50.
Yeah.
I mean, they beat them by 50. And they go into the bragging rights game against a really good Illinois team, and, you're like, well, this will be interesting. But that was I didn't go to that game in 93. I sat at home and watched it, and it goes triple overtime. And you had these guys come off the bench, freshmen who hadn't played a lick, who had to carry Missouri late. Jason Sutherland, Buck Grimm, the two stand out. I know Sutherland hit a big three in that game. Lamont Frazier hit a big three late in that game, and he wasn't even a three-point shooter. But that game convinced me and all my friends, we're not missing this again. We're going next year, and we're going every year that we can from here on out. And so that kicked off, Tom, by the way, some very late, cold nights where you had to camp out for tickets outside of Hearn Center to be in position just to buy the tickets, then to go to the bragging rights game, which was a badge of honor for those who spent the money and the long time and the schnapps or the whiskey or whatever it was we needed to get through that night to make sure we got our tickets.
Yeah, Illinois off to a terrific start. It's a team right now that reminds you of 04-05, which everybody knows is a very special year. The team went to the Final Four here in St. Louis, lost in the championship game to North Carolina. The old argument, I hear it all the time among Illini fans, which team is better, that one or Flying Illini? Well, I'll tell you what, all I know is when I was a kid, and I grew up a Mizzou fan, all right, just, so everyone knows by now, I'm an Indiana alum. I love the Hoosiers, but I grew up here, and the Tigers were my first love. I remember seeing the Flying Illini in person for the first time. Like, wow, there they are. And, I look around. I don't know that the atmosphere is always suitable for kids, to be honest, but I do think that it's the entry for college basketball, Brian, for a lot of people. Like that game here in St. Louis is very special. It's kind of like the measuring stick, isn't it, for both programs?
Yeah, and as we've gone on here, college basketball up till this year, you had already several games already in hand, but a lot of them were non-conference opponents that you should take care of. But this one was like, okay, now we're stepping into the ring. Now we're getting serious, especially those old games when both teams were ranked so high. I mean, you knew it had an early NCAA tournament feel to it. It's different. In the NCAA tournament, you've got 8 teams on site, and it's a little different atmosphere that way. But that same kind of, okay, this is important now. Now we're getting serious. And I can tell you that as good as that win felt the other night against Duke, and Illini fans and, probably a lot of fans, they want to see Duke go down and go down hard. And if you go on the road to Cameron and crush them like that, that felt really, really good. But they were right after the game was like, okay, now let's kill the Tigers. I mean, it's for Illini fans, it's a really big deal. They want to win this game really, really bad. And Bruce Weber found that out when he first came to Illinois. At his backyard, there was a couple of Tigers in effigy. They were, reminding him that you need to beat the Tigers. You need to win this game. This is how important this is in his backyard, just as a reminder that of all the games you're going to coach, this is one of the most important.
Yep, and I remember Quinn Snyder came in there with some electric basketball teams, and then, things started to slip for him, and there was a game where Illinois got him good and got a bucket of popcorn dumped on his head as he was walking off the floor, and, it's just like, you knew things were going to go south from there. It really is. I'll tell you the worst as a fan is walking out, and all fans know this, walking out of the arena if you're the losing team is the worst. Because you got to mix, because they all mix in together as they walk out together. So you got to take the abuse. Tom, you've seen some great Missouri teams through the years. Is there a Missouri team that stays with you that is the closest? Is it that team that turned it around after the Fayetteville disaster and ended up going unbeaten in conference? Which team would it be for you?
Yeah, that 93-94 team was special, and they were a lot of fun. And I was front row seat for all of those games as a student at Mizzou. But like you, and I think you made a great point that this game can be a great entry point for fans, right? Whether you grew up in St. Louis or you're just watching it on TV statewide, either in Illinois or Missouri, because it shows you the passion of college athletics. So for me, I would go back a little bit further. Steepo and Sunvolt, I was a little bit young for those guys. But their run that they went on throughout the early 80s was magnificent. It was my first introduction to it. But I'd go to 88, 89. Peeler, Chivas was on a little bit earlier than that, but Peeler and Doug Smith and Nathan Button and Lynn Hardy was on the front end of that. And a team that not only reached number one in the country, but played against other number one teams. Oklahoma with Blaylock and King, and Kansas with Danny Manning had just been there, 10 years earlier. But all those great players that came in on the back end in the late 90s, those were the teams that I gravitated towards because, and I don't know if this applies to everybody, but I grew up in Columbia, Missouri, so I was always close to the program from a fan's perspective, but I never knew or never realized whether or not it meant anything nationally. So then once you have a team that rises to that level and they're number one in the country or they're a number 2 seed in the tournament, and you end up in Sports Illustrated and you're reading about the team, you're watching them on Sports Center and they're playing a Big Monday, then you step back and you go, hey, the rest of the country cares about my team. This is something neat. This is something special. So I would go back to those 88, 89 teams. Lee Coward hit a couple big shots against Kansas too that really got my juices flowing as a sports fan.
Brian, you've been there for some of the great ones, and of course, Dee, Darren, and Luther. That trio did some serious damage and came up with some amazing stuff. Is that the one for you, or what stays with you?
Well, yeah, especially for the Missouri game that year, because Illinois came in number 1. They had the win over Wake Forest that vaulted to number 1. They were on the cover of all the sports magazines, and they had to fight off the Tigers. I think it was like a 6 or 8 point win, one of their closer games of the year that year. So despite the number 1 ranking, you kind of knew the Tigers were going to come after them. But yeah, that team, the ball movement was just incredible. There's a video clip that's still out there on YouTube somewhere. And I mean, there was like 18 or 19 passes on one end of the floor, and they wound up with a wide open look. Those kind of things stick out. The fact that the year before they had gone and they had won the Big Ten championship the year before too, with a late season win at Purdue and then won it at Ohio State the next game. And all of those guys were back, all 5 of those starters that eventually lost to Duke in the Sweet 16 came back. So you knew who was going to be in the starting lineup, and you knew they were going to be pretty good. And they blew out Gonzaga in Indianapolis right before the Wake Forest game. And I remember sitting with the great Lauren Tate, who's still writing columns up here in Champaign, and he turned to me. He was doing the color that night, and he said, "Brian, these guys are really good." And that was in December, right before December, late November. And that was kind of the first clue that team was going to be pretty special. And I remember telling somebody after a couple of those early games, I said, I don't think we're going to lose again for a long time. I just can't see anybody. Maybe at Wisconsin, which they wound up ending Wisconsin's long home court winning streak that year. But there were so many memories from that year. And they actually got to be so popular in the state of Illinois in particular. We'd go to Chicago for a game and or other places, and there were so many autograph seekers wanting a D Brown signature or a Darren Williams signature. We actually, as a team traveling to a hotel, had to take the service elevator up, go to the back door, and go that way. It was almost like being with the Beatles or something for a year.
Yeah, what a run that was to here in St. Louis at the Dome, and Bruce Weber had that team playing so great. I felt for him. I really did. I mean, to get that close and to fall, and North Carolina is a great team. I mean, there's no doubt, but that was a heck of a run and a very memorable one. And Tom, there have been a lot of close calls with this Missouri program. To never get to that Final Four is tough. But I know that Konzo Martin believes that he can win a lot, and it took a while, didn't it, for this particular team, for this particular regime, to be honest. I mean, it started out great. I mean, I remember when the whole Michael Porter Jr. rumors started to swirl and Konzo Martin rumors started to swirl, and I said, oh my gosh, that Missouri's going to hire Konzo Martin and they're going to get Michael Porter Jr. and they might win it all. And then I was at that game against Iowa State to start the year. It was like a rock concert. I mean, fans were ready. Yeah. And then how many times in Missouri's history have we seen things unravel? And it certainly did. But they're back to an extent. They have something here.
I was at that game too, and I saw an omen the night before. So I was there as a fan. I was there that weekend to do the football game that was played the next day. So I got my football crew together, and I finagled some tickets, and we went, and the place was, as you said, electric. It was packed, and I was just amazed because I grew up going to games in the Hearn Center, and to me, that's what Missouri basketball is supposed to be. And they're all kind of nonchalant, like, hey, this is cool. It's a basketball game. I was like, no, you guys don't understand. This is a happening. And it used to be a happening on a regular basis, and it's back. And so you recognize that what it was. Missouri fans are going to be mad when I mention this, but I mentioned it to a couple of my buddies that night. So there were a bunch of, I mean, that was an event, right? I mean, there were not only those former basketball players came back, but it was a football weekend, bunch of former football players back. And that Friday night, we were out at Shiloh, one of my favorite watering holes in Columbia, and we met a couple guys on our way in or out, I forget which, and one of them was Tony Van Zandt. And Tony Van Zandt was, if people don't know who are watching, was this parade All-American running back who was going to change Missouri's fortunes on the football field in the mid-'80s. I think Hazelwood Central, if I'm not mistaken. And everything was primed for Missouri to take off with this one recruit who was going to change everything. And he plays in a summer all-star game and shreds his knee and was never the same. And Missouri never kind of caught that with the mid-'80s football program. And there's Michael Porter, who comes out that night, and the place is going nuts, and he plays 2 minutes and 25 seconds. And I just think Konzo deserves so much appreciation for how he held that team together and dealing with the distractions. I mean, think about it. He had all the distractions of a near lottery pick and none of the benefits, aside from some of the recruits that they put together on the back end of Michael deciding to stay in Columbia, or technically come back to Columbia to play. But he didn't get any of the benefit of who Michael Porter would turn out to be on the basketball floor. Guys like that come with, I don't want to say they come with baggage or they come with headaches, but they certainly come with, they just suck so much energy and they demand so much energy from a program perspective, whether it's dealing with media or dealing with expectations or answering the same question every day. How many times was he asked, is Michael going to play tonight? I mean, 1,000,
every
right?
Day.
Every day. Every day. So I know that was really tough on the program to deal with that without so many of the benefits. But man, it was for that one night, this is what could be. And I feel like they're back there. I'm just talking to Konzo about it yesterday. He thought he had this team last year. And then there was a couple injuries here, and Tillman missed time and Smith missed time, and they never found their footing. But now they're there, and they've got these wins already this season, and they're playing together as a team. And college basketball is weird this year, right? I mean, Duke's not playing any more non-conference games after the Illinois game Mike Krzyzewski just announced today, and who knows if there's going to be a break or stoppage. So, yeah, I think he's got this program where it needs to be. And I think I know I'm rambling, but one of the key things here is Konzo's always been known as a defensive coach who slows down the game based on what they do on the defensive end. He now has allowed them to take the governor off, and he trusts his guys to run. And so there's more tempo there, and it's a more exciting brand of basketball without giving anything up on the defensive end or the glass. And I think ultimately that's what would make this Missouri team successful.
Yeah, you're right on the money. And, every team needs an X factor. They need a player who can just take off, and they literally have an X, fact, like Pinson is special. There's no doubt in my mind that's a player who could make a difference in a game and could take over a game. I feel like Illinois has a few of those players, Brian. And, the thing that makes Illinois so scary is you see what they did from the outside, 7 of 11 against Duke. But it's the inside game, the defense. It just seems like they have so many options. It was just a matter of time. I know I went to a school that's like this. Indiana fans are antsy. There's always there's a lot of knowledge, but there's a lot of expectation and angst. And I felt like that with Illinois. It was just a matter of time before the fans got what they want. They have something very special. There's an end game here for the NCAA. There may be a pause. It's possible. But they're going to get to this tournament somehow, some way. And Illinois is going to be a very tough out, Brian. I mean, I really believe that. I can't even imagine what it would be like over there in Champaign if they could cut the nets down.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And yeah, the 3-point shooting was one thing they really had to improve because they really struggled with it last year. And they've added those pieces. I was a couple of friends of mine work over at Purdue, and Matt Painter and Brad Underwood are good friends. Their connections to Coach Katie and Kansas State and all of that. But that friend of mine said when Matt Painter saw the press release or heard the news that Brad Underwood was coming to Illinois, he said, uh-oh, they're going to be back. He's done a great job. He comes with an identity. They like to push the ball. They emphasize defense. He likes long, athletic guys that can play a couple of different positions. And you're right, with Kofi in the middle, he said, 3 double-doubles out of the gate. Io can score from just about anywhere on the floor. Frazier can still hit you with threes. The real addition to this team this year has been Demonte Williams, who has always been that glue guy, never scored a lot, and would rarely take a 3-point shot. Teams wouldn't even guard him at times. And now he's shooting like 65% from 3, and he's made about that percentage since the end of last year. And so when he's scoring, and then you throw in Adam Miller, who can shoot lights out, and you've got Curbelo, who can drive to the basket. They only really lost one regular off the team, and that was Andres Feliz, who was a real downhill type player. And they can just score from a variety of ways. They defend really well. And Georgie Vachon-Vila, I haven't even mentioned him.
Yeah.
They've just got different guys they can bring in, and they can go big, they can go small. It's a really fun thing to watch develop.
Before we go, it's coming up on 6:15, and I want to make sure that anyone watching live goes back to KMOX and is able to listen to Kevin Wheeler, host Sports Open Line, because he does a great job. That's coming up in just a few minutes. But let's talk about your jobs for a moment, starting with you, Tom, with SEC Network. Such a great crew. By the way, like everybody was like, "Where's the game going to be? How are you going to watch it?" It's the alternate channel, right? On SEC Network on Saturday at 7 p.m.
I should know that. I've got a football game that night. I've got Mississippi State and Auburn at 7:30.
But that's what it is.
Yeah, that's what it is. So, and John Sunvold will be on the call. I know that much. He's doing it with Chucky Kemp and who had Missouri's Wichita State game. And Sonny played in these games. He's been to the games as a fan. I think it's great because you have a guy who has true appreciation for what this game is and what it means to both fan bases.
Yeah, it's great. I love your group there. The SEC Network's just to me, I always just kind of get drawn to. I like Big Ten Network too, which you actually worked for a time. But I enjoy that. I like the intensive on one group. I don't have to wait. I can just, if I want SEC, I just flip it on and I can hear them talking about it. I can watch Paul Feinbaum. I can watch games. It's a great group of people. And Brian, you all do such a terrific job. I mean, I've been listening to you for a long time. I just, it's a very enjoyable listen. You have great balance in your call, and you know how to call a basketball game. I'll tell you that. I mean, I get sucked in, and I'll sit in the car and listen to an entire half. I mean, it's a blast, and you do a terrific job. Your crew, I know you're very proud of over there.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, Tom. And yeah, it's one of those things where I'm always, in the years I've been doing this, 20 basically at Illinois and 35 years or so as a sports broadcaster, I've always thought my job is to paint that picture for the listener and make them want to sit there and listen. And as you said, kind of get sucked into it where they feel like they're right there. Dave Snell's been up at Bradley for a long time, and he wrote me a nice note several years ago. And, you know, for the radio especially, TV obviously a different medium, but for the radio, you know, Dave told me, he said, Brian, you passed the blind man's test. If I can't see what's there, I want to be able to feel like I can see it. And I feel like if I can do that night in and night out, and the crowd, I love the roar of a crowd. That's what's kind of strange about this year, is not having those crowds, but just the letting a big basket, you hit it, you know, it's good, or he nailed it or whatever, and you let the crowd just fill in the rest. And that's what makes the bragging rights game so cool, is because there was just the constant din, constant roar, and you could really feel when a team got the momentum. And that, for a radio broadcast, that was terrific. But I'm glad we found out what TV network was on, because I host a local show in Champaign, and that was like the first 5 questions the other day was, are they going to be on TV? And I'm like, hey, we're on the radio. Don't worry about the TV.
I get that all the time. Where
But
people
okay.
call up, hey, where's the Cardinals game on TV? I'm like, what do you mean where the Cardinals game? It's on KMOX. You don't need to know anymore. No, of course. As long as Danny Mac, you know, throughout the regular season, he's got every game. But I'll tell you this, this guy on the bottom of the screen, I mean it. I told him this, and I've said it on the air. I know it's a big game when Tom Hart's calling it. Does just a fantastic job on football, basketball, and, oh, by the way, Cardinals in the playoffs, which was very thrilling for me to see you do it and to be part of it. And you do such a great job, Tom, and it's neat to see a Mizzou guy have the run that you've had.
Well, thanks. And I got to tell you, I mean, it was a thrill for me to do the Cardinals-Padres wildcard series. The only thing, and you want to be grateful for everything in 2020, but here I am sitting in a studio in Charlotte, North Carolina, calling a Cardinals-Padres wildcard series, and I'm thinking, all right, the only thing I'm missing is I'd rather be there. But it was really neat for me, and especially because I covered some of these guys in the minor leagues. I mean, I was with Yadier Molina when he was when he first saw snow, was when he was on his way to his first Double-A baseball game, and we were going over the Appalachians on our way to North Carolina. So to see his career and to be able to sit in that seat and be able to call the games was a lot of fun. And Brian's right. Like the crowd tells the story. 99% of the time, we miss people in arena. Not only do we miss being there ourselves, but we miss people being in the arenas. We miss that third voice, you know, being the crowd and what they bring to the game. And I can't wait for everything to get back to normal. And that's what I view Missouri, Illinois as. It's like a little taste of normalcy for all of us who rely on this game every year at this time.
Yeah, I hear you. And, you know, I've heard from a lot of people about this, you know, that it's just not the same. However, it's important. I want to finish with this. Like what you guys do, I mean, I do it too by hosting shows and doing things in studio, and I'll get back to calling some games. But what you guys do is really important. I don't know if you realize that, but you are a distraction for people when otherwise it's been a rough day, it's been a rough year, and the fact that they can take in a game and just forget about everything, we probably didn't realize how important your voices were. Now we do. That's something maybe that we took for granted a little bit. So I appreciate both of you very much, and I appreciate you being on the show. Well,
thanks, Tom, for having us. This has been great. I'm looking forward to the game.
It's going to be good, Tom Hart. Thank you, buddy.
I can't wait. Thanks for having me. By the way, I should throw in one last story about the bragging rights game, because this is the only platform I can share this story, so don't tell anybody. But we were so excited about that 93 game that we decided to go in 94, and we refused to sit down. And it took about 15 minutes for me actually to get ejected from the Kiel Center and kicked out of the game because I refused to sit down. So on my way out, I'm walking out and I see one of my buddy's dads, Bruce Beckett, who's a lawyer in Columbia. And I said, Mr. Beckett, I need some representation. The ushers take me out. Security's got me in the bowels of the arena. He comes running out. He convinces them that they have no right to kick me out. Says nowhere on the ticket that I can't stand. I go back into tears. here I am. I'm back in the arena, and we can all have fun once again. So I don't want to share that anywhere, but just amongst
the garage
friends
happy
here.
Okay.
This is a safe space. Garage happy hour is a safe space. This isn't like we don't send things viral on this show. This is just for, sitting around and a couple of people talking. No, that's an awesome story. I love that. It's great having you guys. It's been fun. We'll have to do it again at some point. I can't wait to see you all in person. We'll get that going. Brian and Tom, thank you very much.
You're very
Thanks,
welcome.
Tom. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Good to see you, Brian.
Yep, good to see you, Tom.
Eric Sykes is our producer. Thanks to him very much. And thank you for watching the Garage Happy Hour. We've been doing it every Thursday since April here on KMOX Sports Facebook page. We're sponsored by Ameren, Illinois. I want you to stay for just a moment to watch this message from Ameren, Illinois. And remember this tip, an energy efficiency tip. You can save on your heating bill, on your energy bill, by just cranking the thermostat down a little bit during the day, during the winter. Keep it at 68. That you'll make a huge difference. There are a lot of energy efficiency tips for you at AmerenIllinois.com. Thank you, Richard Mark and Ameren, Illinois, for all that you've done to sponsor the Garage Happy Hour. Thanks, Brian Barnhart, Tom Hart. It was the Hart Show here on the Garage Happy Hour. We will see you next week here on the KMOX Sports Facebook page and Twitter.
Every day, Ameren, Illinois works to deliver reliable energy throughout the state to on-the-go families, in-the-know grandparents, and busy students. But did you know we also have ways to manage your energy? Paperless billing, outage notifications, pick a due date, auto pay, and so much more. So no matter who you are or how you use your energy, there's an option that's right for you. Learn more at AmerenIllinois.com.